And we have to understand that when we look at this judicial activism, and now they've even got a term for it, they love to call it impact litigation. In other words, they want to use litigation to achieve what they cannot achieve at the ballot box, to enact a judicial tyranny on us. And I think it's very important that when we go back and look at what the founders thought about the courts, Alexander Hamilton, who was really no libertarian, he was one of the most statist of the founding fathers, said that the judiciary was the least dangerous of all the branches because they didn't have the power of the executive and they didn't have the passion of the legislative branch. Well, now they have both power and passion. They have assumed the power, and they are passionately activist on their political positions. And so that's the state that we're in today. But before we get to all this, I want to take a look at some life issues here. There's a story that came out of the UK Telegraph, and this is some ethicists, and I put that in air quotes here, ethicists at Oxford University, and they have argued that newborn babies may be killed because they have no right to life. They are morally irrelevant in their terms. Morally irrelevant, a newborn baby. Now, I just talked, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, to the author looking at the case of Kermit Gosnell. He is serving life sentence without possibility of parole because he killed fully formed babies, newborn babies, babies that the mothers went for an abortion, but they were able to survive on their own. They were born alive. And we have had this battle here in America, and I got to say that was one of the things that changed my mind on it. I'd never really thought about it. In the abstract, I looked at it and thought, well, you know, I didn't really want government making a lot of decisions about my life. This is kind of fuzzy. At one point, I was looking at it, and I thought, well, maybe they shouldn't get involved. But then when I realized what was going on with partial birth abortion, the lie involved in that, a full-term baby capable of survival on its own, they bring this baby out, and as long as one teeny bit of that baby is still inside the mother, they can do whatever they want to legally to it. Well, that's been shut down, thankfully. And babies that were born alive, that was shut down before Kermit Gosnell. And so now he's serving multiple terms in prison, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. He was, as they point out in that book, America's biggest serial killer. Had absolutely no conscience to it. He was not, he was a total sociopath, psychopath killer. He had no conscience whatsoever about that. He was proud of what he did. He kept souvenirs of what he did. That's one of the things that essentially hung him, metaphorically. But these people, this is what they're arguing in a Journal of Medical Ethics. They say newborn babies are not, quote, actual persons. They do not have a moral right to life. This is the Oxford Center for Practical Ethics. What have our universities become? I think it's time we start seriously considering whether or not we need to remove funding from these corrupt organizations. Universities are dragging down society. They are a cesspool of the very worst in society. And I think we need to start looking at cutting their funding. And quite frankly, you'll be interested to find out that the universities are at the center of opposing this travel ban that was enacted by the executive branch. The first judge who did it said this is having a tremendous effect on the states. When we talk about who had standing to sue, I looked at it, it's like, why, how could this even get to court? Because you're talking about people who are not citizens, who are not in this country, or if they're in this country, they're still not citizens. They don't have standing to sue. They don't have rights. But of course, that's part of it. Just as they invented a right to kill children, they're now inventing a right to immigrate into the United States, and that's a key thing we're going to be talking about. But let's go back to this, these so-called medical ethicists at Oxford University in England. The article said that the authors had received death threats since publishing the article. Why do you think that is? Look, if you say that an innocent baby has no right to life, how can you stand? We can all look at any individual person here, and we can say, look, as an adult, I don't like what this guy did, and, you know, I think they ought to be killed or whatever. A baby's never done anything. So you can make an extreme case about anybody who's been alive for a while. It wouldn't be necessarily supported, certainly, but, you know, an innocent newborn baby, as innocent as they come, and you say they have no right to life. How are you medical ethicists who are calling for the murder of innocent babies, how can you say that you have a moral right to life? I mean, don't you understand that you're throwing yourself under the bus? See, this is what's very important about Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court appointment. One of the things that he did that everybody is very impressed with, even if they don't agree with his conclusions, they're very impressed with his legal arguments. He wrote a book on assisted suicide and euthanasia. And he talked about the moral imperative of life. We need someone like that on the Supreme Court. We should all be very thankful that that is the kind of person that Donald Trump has nominated. And I'm talking about this, everything we're talking about today really is about setting the course for this country, especially within the judicial system, taking it back away from this activism. And of course, Neil Gorsuch is on the right idea there. He's also of the mold of Antonin Scalia in the sense that we're going to go with the text, we're going to go with the Constitution, we're going to go with original intent. We're going to look at what the actual law says instead of what you as judges prefer, what your personal opinion is about life. No, you're supposed to have an opinion about the text, not an opinion about the issues. See, that's the key thing here. Now, they go on to say, rather than being an actual person, newborns were potential persons. So they only have potential, even though they're capable of existing on their own. That is the slippery slope that we have created when we said that babies have no right to life, as long as a little bit of them is in the mother. And, of course, they still argue for this. And then at the same time, Daily Caller points out that the president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, and, of course, she is the daughter of Ann Richards, who used to mock George W. Bush for poor George, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I guess she would rather he'd never been born, and if they'd had their way, I'm sure he wouldn't. Of course, the Bushes are heavily into the Planned Parenthood issue as well. It was George W.'s grandfather, Preston, who was, I think, the first treasurer for them back when they were just getting started, and we had Margaret Sanger, who was setting up her centers to eradicate the black population. She was open about that. And Prescott Bush was all about that. And so we also have connections with George H.W. Bush as well with Planned Parenthood. But this is what Cecile Richards, the current president of Planned Parenthood, said. She wants to push the pro-abortion movement to the next level. And to do that, she wants to get rid of the stigma and shame, she said, surrounding abortion. I think it's time for us to be bold. And so I want to ask you to do something or to think about doing something, and that is to share your story. This is the time to do it. So let's be proud of our abortions instead of understanding what is there. And look, I want to say to people who have had that, made that decision, there's times in my life when if I'd been confronted with that decision, as I said before, I didn't really understand the issues involved in it. I didn't understand it from a theological standpoint. I didn't understand it from a moral standpoint. I didn't understand it from a legal standpoint. When I realized what was involved in partial birth abortion, I knew that what they'd been telling me was simply a lie. They had a different agenda. And you need to understand what that agenda is. And if you did that, you have to understand there's something about that you can talk about. Not to be proud of it, but to tell people that you'd been deceived about that. To tell people that you regret that. And to tell people that you found forgiveness for that in the Lord Jesus Christ. You can find that. So that is where we are. And we're going to talk about these other court cases. Let's talk about something that's a little more cut and dried for most people, I think. And that is, why do we have these decisions being made? Is it something that is reviewable? Can the president shut this down? Of course, President Andrew Jackson said of the Supreme Court, well, they've made their decision. Let's see the Supreme Court justice enforce that. And that goes back to what Alexander Hamilton said. He said the executive branch has the power. The judicial branch doesn't have the power to enforce its orders. And so you have to submit yourself to that authority. And it's wrong to do that. We've had a lot of presidents now, modern presidents, who do that. One of the things that this judge in Seattle said was he said, I think I have jurisdiction here. We have some traditions in terms of our decisions. And the very fact that the executive branch has sent representatives here from the Department of Justice, federal delegates to come to my court, to argue before my court, they have submitted themselves to my authority, essentially. I think what they ought to do, and I'll talk to Lionel when he joins us at the bottom of the hour, I think the Justice Department ought to go in on behalf of the president and say, here's the relevant sections of the Constitution that shows the executive branch has power over immigration and over national security. And we're going to talk to you later. We're out of here because you have no jurisdiction over us. No more jurisdiction than if this Seattle judge wanted to rule on a court that was in Georgia. See, it's not his jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction has not only geographical, but it also has constitutional limits. And we have had presidents over and over again at the beginning of this country that would shut that down, and rightly or wrongly. I mean, many times the presidents were wrong and the Supreme Court was right. Sometimes it was the other way around. The Supreme Court has been wrong about a lot of things. They were wrong about slavery. They were wrong about freedom of speech with movies. For about 50 years, it was not considered to be free speech for movies. Remember that, liberals. We'll be right back.
This has been adopted as of 2017 by the Department of Defense. All four branches of the military, Combat One. And guess who in the spring of 2017 has the exclusive right to sell this to everybody else but the military? Infowars.com. I want to commend Q and Patrick and the rest of our team. I want to commend Combat One for getting the big Pentagon deal. And I want to thank them for supporting us because they know we support America. We are the exclusive source of Combat One skin and muscle optimization, field foam, field spray, skin and muscle optimization, and broad spectrum hygiene tactical bath. Contains 8 pre-moistened cloths. Ladies and gentlemen, these are incredibly affordable, and they have patented proprietary systems. That's why it's been adopted by the Pentagon, by the Defense Department, system-wide. I'm going to go over some of the numbers, some of the proven statistics, and the claims that Combat One can make right now. Never before has the public been able to access this new Combat One military-grade hygiene technology used by special operations to maintain hygiene during survival situations. Studied for safety and effectiveness by St. John's Medical Research Institute, St. Jude's, and the American Journal of Infection Control. The technology behind Combat One wipes kills bad bacteria while leaving beneficial skin bacteria unharmed. That's the key buffer. The toxic wipes, the sanitizers kill everything, including your immune system. They lower your fertility. It's all admitted. Combat One is able to do this naturally by only targeting the bad stuff. And again, it's all patented. It's super secret. 12 years, Special Forces testing it. This is something every info warrior needs to order, needs to have in their home, needs to use in their daily lives, whether it's cleaning your guns or your own skin or when you're out camping. This is the game changer. The entire family of Combat One is available exclusively at InfoWarsStore.com.
Just coming back from the river where I was using one of our water filtration straws, a certain device we sell here at InfoWarsStore.com, and I had smacked my knuckle pretty hard the other day with my knife after cleaning one of the animals. So I want to use some Combat One foam, show you guys that we actually use it, how well it works. This wound's been open for about 5 days now. I just dipped it in and out of the river, so just to better safe than sorry. Once I let that soak in, I'll wrap it up, field dress it nice and clean again.
And it certainly is coming to the rescue with Combat One, born in America, made in America, and now distributed by InfoWars to America.